What's good, Illini Nation? It's your man in the middle, Deon Thomas. As you can see from my background, I am sitting in the hotel. Yes, to do a preview of tomorrow's game. And depending on what Dane has me, maybe even a few more questions about the NCAA tournament. But first, before we get going, I got to say, today's episode is presented by our partners at Underdog Fantasy. Use code FIELD to get 100% discount match up to $100. But also want to thank my partners over at Bet River Sportsbook, because without those guys, I am not talking to you, Champaign on Ice. And last but not least, to my partners over at the Field of 68, they have been tremendous, carrying Champaign on Ice for his third season. And we're going to welcome my producer, the interviewer, my man Dane Richardson tonight. Dane, what's up, baby?
Happy to be back. The night before we're recording this, and I thought about it, and my buddy, who's an Illinois fan that I live with from Chicago, he said,
"Oh, good, you hang out with some good people, Dane. There you go. That's where it starts, hanging out with good people."
He was saying that, I'd rather have Illinois be a 10 seed than a 9 or an 8 because they don't want to play a 1 seed in the second round. Well, it's too late for that. They're obviously the 9 seed. They match up with Arkansas, but it's in Des Moines, and I kind of want to start with that. I mean, listen, I understand Arkansas is a decent fan base as well, but tomorrow in the building, there's going to be some more Illini fans in there than Razorback fans. That's something to start with.
Well, and it's a great thing. You, like myself, and like your buddy from Chicago, who's a really smart guy. First of all, being from Chicago, like myself, really smart guy. No, but I would agree with him. I thought that after the loss to Penn State, that we would be a 10 seed. And I was really hoping, to be honest, that we would be a 10 seed. I would have much rather have gone up against that end of the bracket instead of running into a Kansas after we win tomorrow's game. But, we are where we are. And you have to take and slay the dragons that are in front of you. But to get back to your previous statement, yeah, I expect this to be almost like a home game. One of the best things, and this is it's not a surprise to me or a secret to me, the Illini fan base is rabid. I mean, we travel. You want to go to Hawaii? We're there strong. You want to go to New York? We're there strong. I mean, Vegas, we're there strong. I mean, you got the national guys in Vegas like, oh my God, I didn't realize Illinois travels like this. Yeah, you better pay attention, man, because Illini Nation, my girlfriend told me, she was like, you guys are a cult. I was like, yeah, you're right. But we're a cult in a good way. We're not telling people to drink the wacky juice and off themselves. But yeah, we follow the orange and blue, man. Illini Nation is amazing. So yes, I am pretty much expecting tomorrow's game to be like a Illinois home game, as if it's in the State Farm Center.
And clearly, obviously, we know about the loss to Penn State for the third time this season in that second round of the Big Ten tournament. Really, obviously disappointing for a team. You always hear, oh, it's hard to beat a team 3 times. Well, Penn State did that. Do you think, and I'll start before we get into the matchup with Arkansas, do you think that helps them a little bit, that they get a little bit more rest? I know everyone's on a little bit of rest, but Illinois has been off for quite some time, pretty much almost over a week now. So how do you think that affects them?
Well, I can tell you how I think it'll affect them and how I hope it affects them. One of the pluses, and let's start off with the positives, is we were missing Jayden Epps. Yep. Jayden Epps, sustained a concussion in practice. It's a little bit more time for him to get his legs back under him, to get the cobwebs out his head, and to really come back and be healthy. Because in order for us to make a run, we're going to need Jayden Epps. His scoring ability, his poise at the point guard position. I mean, for a freshman, this young man has been, and I tell him all the time, when I see him, I call him Mr. Consistency, because that's what he's been. He doesn't play like a freshman. He plays like a junior or maybe even a senior even. So that's the plus in having that time off. He got a little bit of time in that Penn State game. But Brad just threw him out there to get his legs up under him, and then, but didn't put him in any harm's way. So hopefully he'll come back. He's healthy tomorrow, 100%. Now, to pose the overarching question, as if this is a good thing, and I wish I could tell you it is or it isn't. I literally have no idea. It could be a good thing because it gives us more time in the gym. It gives Brad and the staff a little bit more time to try to get these guys to understand, what's needed in the NCAA tournament. I mean, if you look at it, we have one player, two, that have really made deep runs. Matt, of course, winning the championship with Baylor. Terrence, his time in Lubbock and the run that they made down there. But no one else really has any deep, time of progressing throughout the tournament. So I'm hoping that these guys have been able to translate to their teammates what's necessary. But at the same time, they will listen to the coaches and become more cohesive as a team. I think we have at some point shown throughout the year that we could band together and be that band of brothers and play really well together. And then at other times we had hero ball. Hero ball will never win you very many games, and it definitely will not win you a championship. Your teammates are important. They need to be, more cohesive and play together. So hopefully that will start tomorrow.
And the theme with these two teams going into this matchup, two talented teams that I guess you could say underachieved a little bit in the regular season. And it's somewhat frustrating because you have two great coaches with the X's and O's, but I'll start to get into the matchup a little bit. Listen, Illinois, in a lot of their wins this year, you almost figured, man, Illinois is so talented. You figured that they just overpowered them. Well, Arkansas, they're pretty darn talented too. You could argue they have two lottery picks on their team in Nick Smith and Anthony Black. So at the same time, Illinois, I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, they're going to have to play some smart basketball, and I don't think they're going to necessarily out-talent Arkansas in this one.
Well, I think first of all, that's a great point. I mean, those two kids at Alabama are damn good, and let's just be honest about it. I believe the overall roster at Illinois is better than the overall roster at Alabama.
You mean Arkansas?
But Arkansas. Thank you. At Arkansas. But none of that means anything if you don't come out and play hard and play smart. And at Illinois, that's been kind of the crutch sometimes, is too many turnovers. You turn over the ball against Arkansas, they're getting down in transition with their length and their athleticism, and they're making you pay. They're not a great three-point shooting team, which kind of really feeds right into what Illinois does pretty well. Is defend the three-point line and close out and be able to use that athleticism. But they have guys as well, like Illinois, that can get downhill, that can finish at the rim, which in a way feeds into one of the things that Illinois does best. They're the second best shot blocking team in the country. You have guys on that team that will sacrifice their body and take charges and things like that. So it's really going to be interesting. I mean, this is, you complain sometimes about the matchups, and if the selection committee got it right, you want to see a dog fight tomorrow. It is a pretty good doggone matchup, man, because these teams kind of mirror each other in some ways.
And, because it's the type of team that because it's obviously you play two games, you get a day in between, but if you're a one seed, and we'll get into it later because Arkansas is first. Is first. But exactly. You cannot, and it's either team, both Arkansas and Illinois. They're both teams that I could think, oh, yeah, if you told me in the Sweet 16, would I be surprised? Sure, a little. You don't expect Kansas to necessarily lose in the first weekend. But at the same time, you look at the roster, you look when these teams are at their peak, they absolutely could be a second weekend team.
Yes.
Second weekend demons, right? Brad Underwood didn't make it when he was a one seed with Io and Kofi, losing to Loyola in the round of 32. Obviously, Houston last year. And I know you're around the team. Is that something you think motivates Coach Underwood going into this year? Because this year they're finally a little bit of the underdog, where last 2 years they were the highest seed in their group of 4.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you this. Brad Underwood does not need motivation. Brad Underwood is a guy that's constantly in work mode, that's constantly in getting better and drive mode. You've seen him on the bench. If we're up 20 or we're down 20, he's always coaching. He's always pushing his guys to be better. So Brad isn't the one I'm concerned about. Because I know the guys will have, and his staff is pretty much the same way as he is. They mirror their coach. Now, some of them may not yell and scream and curse as much as Brad, but they do it a little bit softer. Not meaning soft as in they're patting guys on the back. They just don't yell and scream and curse, but they curse and get their point across. My point is, these guys should be ready. They have and should be prepared and have been well coached. They're going to know what Arkansas does, so they're going to be prepared for it. Now it comes down to not the X's and O's, but the Jimmies and Joes. Are you going to get out there and play harder and more with more ferocity than the team that's on the other side of the court? And that's what we're going to have to see tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. And Matthew Meyer, of course, you mentioned he'd won a national championship at Baylor a few years back. Terrence Shannon Jr. has postseason experience, of course, in the past with Texas Tech. Those two guys, you figure in order for Illinois to make a run, I got to think Terrence Shannon scores at least, and I don't want to say this if Matthew Meyer goes off. Yes, I got to figure Terrence Shannon has got to score probably 18 plus, I feel like, for this team to win. Am I correct?
I do not disagree with that. Terrence Shannon is the tip of the spear. He's your best player. He has to be the best player on the court. I know they got, definitely one lottery pick on that other team, but you have to take that as a challenge to go out there and be the better player on the court. That's where I believe it begins. Matt Meyer has to be a better version of Matt Meyer than he's shown the past 2 games. And he has that ability to be able to do so. I mean, he's a special talent that can really shoot the ball, and at his size and length can get to the rim and do things. I believe Coleman Hawkins has to really step up and show what those NBA guys want to see. He has a ton of skill. He has to show the aggressiveness and the fight to be able to pull this team through, not just tomorrow, but moving forward, and you're right. So your question was if Terrence has to step up and average 18 plus? Yes. Yes, he does. And I believe those other 2 guys have to be his Batman and Robin. Not his Batman, his Robins to Batman.
And one of the things I'm noticing a little bit, it always turns out, yes, you sometimes know what you're going to get with Shannon, and I understand he's had some free throw troubles. Well, not always. I see that reaction, but
no, you're right. Your question is right, and what you were starting off saying is right. And the unfortunate side of that statement is it applies to this team in general, because this team really goes as he goes.
Consistently inconsistent, I call them. When they play team basketball, I notice defensive intensity. Of course, you're always going to get that from Sincere Harris, but
yes,
are the other 4 guys in the court doing the same thing? And obviously they're not going to replicate that type of on-ball defense, but are they engaged with each other? Are they connected? It doesn't matter. Okay, if they're cold from 3, that's fine. Are they getting to the free throw line, right? Are they controlling the pace? And at the same time, Illinois, I feel like they could do that tomorrow, but Arkansas, for me personally, is a team that somewhat concerns me because they do a lot of things well that Illinois sometimes also does well, which is why I think tomorrow is a dogfight. Even if Illinois comes out of the gates fast, I can see the Razorbacks responding. So it's really going to have to be a 40-minute effort. Of course it is with the NCAA tournament, but I feel this isn't a team where Illinois feels like they have super duper like a matchup problem that they can create. No, this is going to have to be 100% a team effort tomorrow.
Today's episode is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, the easiest place to play college basketball pick'em, where you can get a little extra sweat during March Madness and win real cash prizes simply by picking player stats in this weekend's games. In pick'em, all you do is predict whether a player will go higher or lower on Underdog's projected totals, whether that's points, rebounds, whatever. For example, if you're like me and you think Zach Edey is going to go nuts in this tournament, pick higher on his points projection, add up to 4 more picks, and if you hit them all, you can win 20 times your money on a single game. Underdog's slick mobile app is easy enough that dummies like Jeff Goodman have even figured it out. So go to underdogfantasy.com or download the app and use the code FIELD, FIELD, and Underdog will match your deposit up to $100. Now is the time to get in on the madness. So remember, underdogfantasy.com, promo code FIELD.
No, it is. It is definitely going to have to be. I mean, you have your big dogs, and then you have the other guys that have to play at a very good clip as well. If we're looking at depth, I think the Illinois depth is better than the depth at Arkansas. But you got to come out and you have to match, and not just match, you have to surpass the intensity that they're going to play with. And we talked about, you can't settle for 3-point shots. You can't. You have to put the pressure on these guys by pushing the ball in transition, as you mentioned, playing with pace, pushing it in transition, going downhill and attacking at the basket, and forcing this Arkansas team to foul, to play defense, because this is an SEC team. Let's be quite honest. They ain't trying to play a whole lot of defense. They're trying to outscore you. If you look at their average points, they average in close to 80 points a game. They're trying to outscore you. So you really have to be the aggressor from that standpoint and be disciplined on the defensive end, while being in attack mode at the same time. And it goes back to what you said. It's going to take focus, it's going to take intensity, and it's going to take an overall team effort. And you can't give them the ball. You can't get beat on the rebounds. You can't let them drive you and get you in foul trouble. You cannot foul and put guys on the free throw line and put your best players on the bench. They're going to have to play the way most of Illini Nation expected this team to play all year.
Mm-hmm. And I look at Arkansas specifically and the strength of their team with a lot of teams, and you have to have this in the NCAA tournament, is their backcourt, right? Nick Smith Jr. coming back. Anthony Black is really good. Ricky Council, I know we haven't mentioned him. He's Arkansas's leading scorer at just under 16 points per game. And Mekhi Mitchell is also a decent player inside, but I look at Dane Danger tomorrow, and I think he might be, instead of Coleman Hawkins, who everyone thinks is the X factor and has to play well, and yes, he does. If Dane Danger is able to establish something in the post, some type of presence, that I feel like could really be bothersome, and not just tomorrow or today, in fact, into the future too. He's the type of guy that could just be a game changer, because he adds kind of the old school element to Illinois when everything's up and down. And like I said, him in the block is just dangerous.
Well, I agree with you 100%. First and foremost, this kid, Dane Danger, that is he doesn't get the opportunities that I feel he should. And I know Coach Underwood is constantly trying to get him the ball early and get things going. If he gets going, Arkansas is in trouble. Because what that means is now Arkansas has to help on, off of the ball in other situations. Dane's a great passer. His skill level, he'll be able to get the ball to other guys on the floor. Illinois, I know, shot 29% during the season, but I think a large portion of that was the horrible shot selection that you mentioned earlier. When these guys catch the ball and their hands and feet ready, you can almost count the basket. Why do people talk about Matt Meyer playing at the next level? Because he can shoot the dang on basketball. Luke Goody, one of the best shooters in the Big Ten. Everyone knew it. He was injured most of the year, so it didn't come back till later on. bona fide shooter. RJ Melendez, if anyone remembers the way he shot the ball last year, struggled a lot this year. He kind of had the yips, to give a golf term up in there, kind of had the yips throughout the season. But the last 3 games, he shot the ball really well from the outside, not to mention crashing and dunking on people when he's gotten to the basketball, his ability to play above the rim. Jaden Epps, when his feet are set, really good shooter. Same thing with Terrence Shannon. So if Dane Danger can get going inside, and as you said, establish his game in the interior against Mitchell, one, you make Mitchell defend, and that's their best rebounder on the floor. If you get him off the floor, now Illinois, who already has the advantage, are one of the top rebounding teams in the Big Ten and one of the top in the country, especially for rebounding percentage. Now you've gained an even bigger advantage on the interior. So I think Illinois definitely has to try to get Dane going early and often, and then feed off of everything else that happens around that.
And other than Hawkins, other than Danger, you talked about Shannon. We've talked about Shannon. We've talked about Meyer. Is there anyone else that you feel like needs to step up, particularly offensively tomorrow? I feel like those 4 can obviously get it done, but Jaden Epps, you said he should be ready to go tomorrow. What are you expecting out of Jaden Epps, right? Because we know he had that whole concussion thing, didn't play against Penn State when they lost for the 3rd time in that season. Are you expecting him to jump right back into things and make an immediate impact on the offensive end? Or you think he's going to have to rely on a little bit more of some other guys in the backcourt like Melendez and Shannon?
Well, Shannon's going to have to be Shannon.
Of course.
Matt Myers is going to have to be Matt Myers, as you mentioned. Coleman is going to have to play better. I expect him to be Mr. Consistency, Jaden Epps, that is, which is what I call him every time I see him. He walks fast in the hallway, but like Mr. Consistency, I don't need him to go out and get 20. I need him to go out and get his 5 assists to 1 turnover. I need him to get his 12, 13 points. Most of that is driving to the basket, finishing high, and knock down 1 or 2, maybe 3 3-pointers if it's available for him. I just need him to play within himself. Doesn't have to be anything huge. But then you also need RJ Melendez to come in and give you several points, which he can do. RJ can very easily be a double-double guy. If he does that, we win this game running away tomorrow if the other guys do their job. Because he is a kid that can give you multiple points. Luke Goody can come in and give you, 6 to 10 off the bench from the 3-point line and from the free throw line. So our depth, I believe, as I said earlier, is superior to that of Arkansas. But we need our big 4 to play like a big 4, and then everyone else to chip in. You mentioned Sincere Harris. We need Sincere to be big tomorrow. He's going up against 2 possible lottery picks. We need Ty Rodgers to come in and do the same. Both of those guys have done a tremendous job of shutting down the best players on the opposing teams, while Ty has also been a monster on the boards. And in the last, I'll say 6 to 7 games, has really found his niche in the offense as far as scoring and getting to the basket and doing things that he does best, and really having a high basketball IQ and creating opportunities for other people. When he's out there, he makes not just what he does, but he makes everyone else better as well. So you said it. It's going to take a team in order to be able to advance in the NCAA tournament. And that's not just beating Arkansas, but that's if they expect to make any kind of run, they're going to have to make sure that they get together and play hard.
I want to touch on one thing on Rodgers before I move on to sort of another topic I want to talk about, whether it's moving on to potentially Kansas. And like I said, Arkansas first, but if Rodgers is able to get 3-4 buckets, listen, when you're a defense scouting Illinois, Ty Rodgers isn't the first name on the scouting report necessarily when you're defending the Illini. He's probably the 4th or 5th guy when he's on the court.
Not even there. Not even
there. So that's what I'm saying. If Rodgers is able, like you said, he is finding his niche offensively. Mm-hmm. So if he's able to contribute in that end to go along with what he does in the glass and defensively, that's where you could really start to see Illinois heat up. But what I
Yes.
want to get to, let's say they win over Arkansas, whether it's close, whether it's by 20, whether it's by the seat of their pants, they don't play well, or they do play well. Let's say they get that win, and how do you expect them to go in against a 1 seed in Kansas and do the same exact thing? Because Illinois can play great, and you think they're on the run, you think they're going to have a shot. And then this season, it seems like every time we feel that way, they start to slow down a little bit. You don't get the same consistent effort. It troubles me that the inconsistency troubles me to think they're going to get out of the first weekend, not just because they're going to play at Kansas. It's the inconsistency that gives me the thoughts in the back of my head that says, I have a tough time seeing them in the Sweet 16 despite the talent.
Well, I wish I could disagree with you, Dane, but I can't. And I think that up and down roller coaster has bewildered Coach Underwood, the staff, and Illini Nation as a whole. From a talent standpoint, this team has everything that they need to reach a Sweet 16 or even an Elite Eight.
A Final Four.
Further.
Deon,
That's what I'm saying, or even
this team
further.
can make a Final Four with the talent they have on the roster.
Yes. But it's the mental aspect that has held them back. Finding that cohesiveness, I believe, has held them back. So they win this game against Arkansas. How do they go in and compete against Kansas? One of the things that I've seen with this team this year, yes, we talked about the roller coaster, but they play to the level of their competition. And I believe that seeing a Kansas could really inspire some of these guys to come out and play well. Well, first of all, Matt's not going to be afraid to come out and play Kansas because he played them all the time when he was at Baylor. You know, TJ, Terrence Shannon's not going to be concerned about that because, you know, these are guys that he's played against, whether it's on the AAU level or at some point, that level of player while he was at Tech. The problem is not if they or anyone else on this roster for that move is afraid of Kansas, not afraid of Kansas. I think Illinois has to get to a point where Illinois has to play a brand of basketball that is worthy of Illinois. If they come out and understand, a few years ago, I was talking to some people earlier tonight. When you played Illinois, when Ayo Dosunmu was here, pre-Ayo Dosunmu, when there was Trent Frazier, DeMonte, before Ayo came in as a freshman, you knew you were going to be in a dogfight. Every loose ball that hit the floor, they were going to be on the floor, and they would be the first ones on the floor. I have not seen that same fire in this team. I remember the game against Michigan. There was at one point in the game where they were scrambling. Terrence Shannon basically did a Dennis Rodman diving and trying to get the ball. I believe that was the loudest I heard the Illini fans inside the State Farm Center the entire year. They were rewarding and appreciating the effort that not just he made, but that the guys made before him, and then him, of course, being the last one to dive on the floor and get that basketball. Illini Nation lost their mind. That's what they're going to need. They're going to need that to step up if they want to beat Kansas. Kansas is a damn good basketball team. And they're going to have their head coach back on the sideline, which they did not have against Texas when they got drubbed. So they're going to come into this, you know, a game off of playing the 16th seed, and they're going to want to win. They're not coming up there. Kansas, a failed season for Kansas is if they are not in the Final Four or in the finals competing for a championship, because that's where they have marked themselves. And anything short of that is a failure. That's where Illinois has to get to. When they understand that, okay, if we don't get here or we don't play like this, then it doesn't matter whether we win or lose, because we're competing against ourselves. We're not competing against the Razorbacks or the Rock Chalk Jayhawk. We're competing against ourselves. And that's what they have to get and understand. And if they do that, this is a team, like you said, Final Four, championship game. They could be in either one of those positions. It's just really finding and understanding you are playing to your level and to what you aspire to be. I'll be damned everybody else. Doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? So it doesn't matter what color uniform they have on, you're playing at your level. And your level should be going out there, pardon my French, to kick everybody's ass that does not have on the same color uniform that you have on.
Well, Deon, that's clearly the style that you played with, and I feel like of that I don't want to say older school mentality, because you do see
it
is. But with a coach like Brad Underwood, you almost expect that style of play every night out, and that's what's frustrating for Illini fans, is that they haven't seen that 24/7 this year. But it would make it that much sweeter if this were the weekend that all of a sudden said, "Oh well, now you decided to show
that shit clicks
for 48 hours."
That shit clicks.
Two really solid teams, one really good team on Saturday potentially. But like I said, that first matchup, it's the first 10 minutes, and obviously it's a 40-minute game. The first 10 minutes always tell you a lot with this team. Are they engaged? Are they going to be ready to go? And now I got to move into the next question. Deon,
before you go to the next one, you say the first 10 minutes. As I'm sitting there on the radio, this may be the player in me, this may be the coach in me, this may be the analyst in me. I'm watching them in warm-ups. I'm watching you in warm-ups.
You can tell then?
Oh, no doubt. No doubt.
Well, I feel like tomorrow, I mean, it's the NCAA tournament, you're going to see. Oh, come on, man. You're going to see that energy, right?
If you don't, then you know there's a problem, because you should. I mean, if you see guys walking around, they're listless, they're not having fun, they're not amped up, they're not angry. I played angry. I mean, I didn't like anyone that was on the other team. And that's just the way I played. I didn't like you. I didn't talk to you. Juwan Howard will tell you, that was my boy, and that's my boy to this day. But when we stepped on the court, I ain't your goddamn friend. I ain't shaking your hand. I ain't hugging you. None of that. After the game, we can talk. You can see people in the warm-ups if they're that focused, if they're, into what it is that's about to step in front of them. Oh yeah, it's as clear as day. Tell you, the next game you sitting on the sideline, watch it. You can see it. It's obvious.
I'll keep an eye out for that for sure. And
Please do.
Like I said,
and make sure you call me.
Okay.
You be like, yeah, Deon, I was watching it. Yeah,
I'll be like, I will. I promise you that. So, but at the same time, like you said, there are guys with postseason experience. Specifically, obviously, you want to harp on Matthew Meyer. But the next big question for me, and I'm expecting a certain answer out of you, but let's say they beat Arkansas, but then they lose to Kansas, but they don't get embarrassed by Kansas. They lose by a couple baskets, couple possessions, whatever it might be. They lose in the round of 32 to a 1 seed. Do you consider that a success of a season for Illinois?
No, I don't.
I would agree.
I don't. And I believe everyone on the coaching staff would say the same thing. And I believe most, if not all, of the players would say the same thing. When the season started, before the season started, I went on a limb and I told everybody, this is the most talented team. And I still believe that. One of the most talented, if not the most talented team that the University of Illinois has ever had. Now, that's in competition with the Flying Illini team. And I'm talking about player for player, depth for depth. That 2005 team, their starting five was great. Everything after that, the 89 team had depth. This team can literally go 9 to 10 deep, and there's not a huge chasm between, everyone else. And that's the amazing part about this team. We've never had, and that's going way back into the Dave Downing days, up into me, a center or a power forward like a Coleman Hawkins with his skill level, or Dane Danger with his skill level, or at least where you were allowed to go out and do it in the game. So that's why I would go out on a limb and talk about the abilities of this team. So for me, and again, I think everyone else will agree, and I think you will as well, this team has woefully underachieved because they just have not been able to find that it to bring themselves together. I don't know if it's transfer portal. I don't know if it's NIL. I don't know if they like each other's girlfriend. I have no idea what the thing is, but there's something that has been keeping this team from really gelling together and being the monsters that they could be. Like you said, hopefully it starts this weekend because they're good enough to be that. They just have to get out of their own way. And there's nothing, and I hate to say this, there's nothing a coach can do. The coach can't do it. He can yell, he can scream, he can pat him on the back, he can hug them, he can do all of those things. But if the players don't come together, there's nothing the coach can do. I mean, you're really, and I've been in this situation as a coach. This is why I'm saying it. I've been in this situation as a player. I'll go back to myself and Shelley Clark, my senior year at Illinois. I mean, Shelley was the JUCO Player of the Year. This is one of the strongest dudes I've ever seen in my life that has never lifted weights. We didn't click off the court, so it didn't really work on the court. And I think that's one of the reasons we ended up losing to Georgetown my senior year in the second round. We were good enough to be Sweet 16, maybe an Elite 18. But we never got there because of internal shit. So hopefully they'll get it together this weekend and be able to roll.
Yeah. But I'll pose another question to you then. All right, add one more win to that. You beat Kansas. You make the second weekend for the first time in
a long time. Probably since 06, 07, 05, 06.
Long time. Then I feel like for me, it becomes a success. You really start to think of that because I mean, if you think about it in program terms, maybe not in terms of the talent of the team, because you feel like, oh, if this team gets to the second weekend and they beat Bill Self's Kansas Jayhawks, then barring any crazy UMBC crap, which obviously that's not going to happen, but if they beat Kansas, then you're starting to think, all right, we just beat the best team in our region. Why the hell can we not go to the Final Four?
Oh no, I agree with that.
Like that's the thing though. Like, what if Illinois gets to weekend 2? Why wouldn't you pick them to go to the Final Four? Well, there are reasons why you wouldn't, because you don't know which team is going to show up. But
exactly.
If you see that type of performance, that's what I'm talking about. You see you in Houston. That's what I mean. And I'm
but
not.
That's the thing.
It's so tough.
No, it is, and they have the ability to beat Kansas.
Oh yeah, they beat Texas, and you could. I would argue that Texas is a better team than Kansas. No offense to them. I mean, Kansas is one of the best.
No, you're right.
In the country. And I get that was way back in 2022. That was before the new year. But listen,
the team is a team.
Yeah.
The team is a team. And you're right. They beat them. And that's one of those things that you can't take off the table because that's what happened. So that goes back to what we were just discussing. This team has all of that. It's just a matter of which one shows up. So we will see. Tomorrow at 3:30.
It'll be close. We'll see. Listen, I think it's gonna be not necessarily a rock fight, but a dog fight. Every single game.
Oh, it's definitely gonna be a dog fight.
I think
but that's the NCAA tournament.
It is. It is, and that's what we love about it. It's March, Deon.
Hell yeah, it is. This is the best time of the year, baby.
That's what I keep telling people. And people, well, of course, people that aren't as into March Madness, like, oh no, especially in the Northeast where I am, like,
Oh, so what the hell are they, hockey fans?
yeah, I mean, I don't want to say there's too many, but there's not.
Well, they're hockey fans, man. I went to my first hockey game the other night. I watched the Blackhawks beat the Boston Bruins.
How was that? You went to the Blackhawks?
Freaking amazing. Will not be my last hockey game.
Now, I will say, and I want to get too off topic, the Blackhawks are just trading away Patrick Kane. They're not a great team, but you said you're pretty into it, weren't you?
Man, I was excited. I've never seen the only other hockey game I've ever seen was the University of Illinois play when I was at Illinois, and they're a club team. So I mean, I was fascinated by the speed of the game, the physicality of the game. It's almost those same things that I like about basketball, or the same things that I witnessed and I like about hockey. I can tell you right now, that will not be my last game sitting in the UC watching the Blackhawks. I've become a fan, man.
Hey,
I almost bought a damn jersey last night, and I don't even wear jerseys.
Hey, listen, Blackhawks. If anyone from the Chicago Blackhawks is listening, or anyone that's an Illini fan that's also a big Blackhawks fan, get my man Deon a jersey.
I'd love that.
Get my man Deon a jersey. And also, we're hoping the more Illinois wins, the more broadcasts. You get to hear Deon on the radio with Brian Barnhart, of course, and hoping for the best for the Illini. Hope this isn't our last episode this season where Illinois is still playing. Should be a fun one tomorrow. Arkansas at 3:30 Central Time in Des Moines, Iowa. Thanks so much to the Field of 68 for carrying the podcast and our sponsor, Bet Rivers, Champaign on Ice, producer Dane Richardson, Deon Thomas, NCAA Tournament Edition. Thanks for joining us.